Hello and welcome back to the Retro Asylum, the UK's #1 retro gaming podcast. I'm Jim Middleton and I'm here with Chris O'Regan.
Hello.
And two very special guests to talk all things Evercade, Blaze Entertainment's CEO Andrew Byatt.
Hello.
And Head of Marketing Sean Cleaver.
Hello there.
Hello. Thanks for joining us, guys.
It's our pleasure.
You're welcome.
And thanks for giving up your time. I suppose the best place to start is to say congratulations and happy birthday for the recent anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, that passed pretty quickly, I think. Suddenly we're 5 years old.
5 years, everyone. What happened? What else happened 5 years ago at the time of recording? Yes, everyone was playing Animal Crossing. That's it. That's what happened.
That is actually
exactly
true.
What happened.
That is true. I was playing Animal Crossing a lot. And It was my first Animal Crossing. So
yeah, we all did that. But in the midst of it all, a brand new console arrived in the form of the Evercade, which is was a white handheld console with grey buttons and red finish and remarkably sturdy D-pad and very, very responsive action buttons. I still have mine. I've kept on to it, even though it's not my weapon of choice. The handheld, I have the XP now, but it's up on my shelf. So thanks. But the biggest thing that arrived when it arrived was such a remarkable thing because it wasn't crowdfunded really. It was just appeared. You did a great sort of marketing push. Well done, Sean. And said, look, this is the thing. This is real. You can go to Argos and buy it. Great. And you get cartridges just like you did 20 odd years ago or 30 odd years ago, maybe. And that was the start of it all. Was the proprietary cartridge delivery system. There wasn't an SD card or an memory card. There was none of that. It was just you, the cartridge and the console. You plugged it in, turned it on, and it worked. It worked. And it's just initially it started off ports of old arcade titles on second generation to fourth generation consoles. But recently that's changed because it's expanded to arcade PCBs and 8-bit and even 16-bit and indeed fifth generation consoles, which is pushing the 32-bit, which we have with the Tomb Raider games on the PS1 and Saturn. Yeah, I'm going to go with that because I think that was his lead platform, by the way, wasn't it? I think Saturn was lead platform for Tomb Raider. I didn't know that.
Yeah, for the first one, yeah.
That's an interesting little nugget that the Tomb Raider was Saturn. And then, I mean, Saturn's got an incredibly important part to play in what became Sony's exclusives when Wipeout became ported and Destruction Derby got ported. And rather than carry on those ports, Psygnosis became a Sony studio and exclusively Sony.
It did.
But yeah, no, it's a very important part in gaming history, that leap, because 3D existed, right? We had some various different 3D things that were pushing, Amiga and PC were doing some 3D and
Quake arrived before, yeah.
Quake arrived before then, but then on the console space in this home, you plug into your TV, not having to have a X amount of £100 computing rig. There was a few Mega Drive games that really pushed the boundaries of those kind of things. Zero Tolerance and things like that, like which I think we have, I believe, Pico Collection 3, using my memory. But yeah, I mean, that hit and that era of gaming just took off like nothing. And a lot of people look back on that era of gaming now and sort of lament the feeling of looking at that like it was new, because we're so spoiled with photorealism and high dynamic range and physical base rendering and all of these mad pipelines that you use to make modern games. And then you actually see the revolution that almost in some ways felt like it happened overnight just on a screen in the front room.
Yeah. Is that where you were then, Sean? You a console man or PC or?
At that point, I sort of flip-flopped between the two. So I was actually a 486 PC man, so I was very much into my strategy games and heading into that mid-90s range of things like Heroes of Might and Magic, Command & Conquer, that kind of stuff. But I always had consoles as part of my makeup. I was a Sega man for many, many years until I eventually joined the rest of the school and got a PlayStation and Cool Borders too, and then went down that route. But Yeah, I've sort of been around all of the major points, but probably about 3 years later than when they were actually new and relevant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for me, Tomb Raider was the tech demo for 3DFX because I had one of those machines.
Yeah.
It looked amazing. It really did. Like, oh, this looks amazing. Look at this smooth textures, and it does. And even to this day, I go, yeah, I can't. Yeah, that's for me. That was the time. So it was pushing boundaries on many fronts. You're right. It's not just So for me, it was always been that thing of my first proper 3DFX game.
Yeah, I think it was the Voodoo card, one of the Voodoo cards that I had first, and I think it was going from having played things like Dark Forces to playing the Jedi Knight game and just seeing how smooth and well textured everything was from these things. I was like, wow. And then eventually, like, seeing that then transpose onto TV and console as we got into the early noughties and stuff.
Yeah,
but at the same time, you get wrapped up in progress, don't you? I mean, we're on the eve of Switch 2, where Nintendo have been iterative rather than progressive, potentially. And we're all there. And what we're looking at and why that kind of console is successful is because it does the things well that we loved when we were young. It does those things of simplicity, being able to just get a game that works for the most part. You don't have to worry about, sometimes now with download times with things like that with the Switch, but the concept of, you plug in a game, you press a couple of buttons, you get the gameplay loop, and you can have a good old time, especially if, like many of us, you're quite time poor nowadays, and you've got responsibilities, life and everything else, and you go, do I want to sit there for 6 to 8 hours trying to involve myself in this immersive, massive 3D environment, or do I just want to squash some bugs on their heads, jump around a couple of platformers? And it ends up being the latter.
Yeah, definitely. And what about yourself, Andrew? Was you similar sort of background?
I started my first console, NES. We had a PC, initially an Amstrad PC, and then NES, and then an Amiga. I had a Lynx because I thought, and I've said this before, I thought that all my mates were getting Game Boys, and I was so proud and pleased with this Lynx and thinking it was the best thing ever. It was colour and it was amazing, and it was this huge bow tie at the time, but it was an amazing console, and I was so. And I mean, we went through batteries like crazy, but it was this fantastic thing, and then suddenly. Nintendo won that one, funnily enough, quite comprehensively, it seems. But yeah, I was I was similar in the sense of strategy games. I had my Amiga, which was where I went to next, and then I went back to PC. So I was playing Civilization and all that stuff was my big love at the time. Too much Championship Manager and Sensible Soccer and all those kind of things too. So probably why football games feature and Americans get annoyed with us about the Evercade, because we're British, so there's a fair amount of football featured.
Championship Manager, the game that ruined many an A-level.
Yes. Well, our chairman, Dominic Wheatley, he was responsible for kind of signing that for Domark. So he has lots of stories about all that kind of stuff, and he signed that, and I think that he gets throttled at dinner parties apparently for mums saying he failed his A-levels because of you. That's something to beat him with. Yeah.
For me, it was Metal Gear Solid, but that was the game that almost destroyed me. But anyway, that was before my professional exams, not my A-levels, and still got through anyway. So hey, obviously it was the right thing to do.
And here you are
out in the end. So we're what, 2025 now. We just I suppose the dust has just settled on the recent showcase.
Yeah, pretty much.
Can't go as well as you wanted. When that goes out, is it a case then of sort of cracking out the Evercade mug out of the desk, having some scotch and just chilling for a little bit, or is it like straight on to the next thing?
What is chilling? What we don't.
No idea. There's some words he's made up. I don't know what he was talking about.
I can't say that scotch might not be involved occasionally if there's some in the arm-reaching vicinity, but it is very much a quick swifter, if you will. And it's like, that's nice. That's the one. Back to it.
Yeah.
So it's such a celebration, though, isn't it? Those showcases. It's the only way I can describe them. I know they're called a showcase, but you genuinely it ekes enthusiasm. It's not forced. You know, we've all seen those marketing campaigns where the person who's designed it has absolutely no interest in the topic or the subject matter. Whereas this is definitely come across as like, oh no, we really care. And it almost, it's very well put together and cut and professionally, but it's always on the edge of not being so. It's awesome. Thanks for doing that.
It feels very British like that, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It's like that. We're on the edge of it being an absolute chaotic 15 minutes for everybody. No, thank you very much for the comments on it. It's an unbelievable amount of work and organisation that goes in of managing the right people, doing the right things at the right time, having to get your hands dirty when you need to, and getting things done, and also as well, there is an element of it does feel occasionally, that I'm in it too much and I'm trying to get out of it, but as a voiceover artist, I'm quite cheap for the company.
I can attest to that. He is quite cheap.
Right, there you go.
His voiceover work.
But it's nice to hear that you think that they're a celebration. We go into each one having to balance giving people something new and trying to hype it up beforehand that the new things are going to come that we think everybody's going to love, or if there's a subject in particular, like when we've done an indie focused one, we know it's going to be a slightly different vibe and a slightly different feel, but we always have to go into these things thinking there's going to be somebody watching this that's never seen an Evercade before, doesn't know what it is, and it's balancing between telling people what it is, educating people what it is, not annoying the people that know what it is and they're like, yeah, get on with it, and just trying to keep that there. And this last one, we were able to kind of use other people's voices to celebrate it rather than us going on about it. And I think that was a thank you to everybody that was involved that allowed us permission to use their clips, because I think it was a nice way of sort of showing the product out there as opposed to look at the marketing we did. It was very much look at people actually having fun with it. And I think that's where that celebration came from.
Yeah. And is that something that you've got a lot, you're a lot easier with now? Because I remember in an older interview that you did, Andrew, you said that the original product went out to a lot of YouTubers and you kind of just hid behind the couch waiting for that feedback to come back. So now when these showcases go out, are you kind of not hidden behind the couch anymore? You're looking forward to getting that feedback, or is
it's quite different. I think those early days, it was very much we need to sort of see if people want this thing and this whole concept. And we didn't pay for reviews or anything like that. We literally contacted a bunch of influencers and said, have a look at this. So we boxed up the boxes, sent them off, and then they emailed back and forth saying, yeah, we're going live on next week on Thursday. There was not a lot of kind of back and forth, and it was just waiting to see. And as I said before, I kind of went upstairs, shut the door, and turned it on, hiding behind my hands to see whether what they'd say. And it turned out they thought it was a cool idea, and they liked it and they enjoyed it and it worked and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's quite a departure now. It's much more professionalism on what we're doing in terms of the marketing side and putting more out there and energy and effort into all of it. So, and that's only going to increase, I think, as we continue to grow.
Yeah. Because I imagine, obviously, you couldn't really get any closer to the product, could you? At that stage, you've developed it yourself. You've gone over to China. Is that as everything's
that's right.
So as everything's sort of kicking off in the world at that time?
We'd kind of developed it through the end of middle of 2019 to the end of 2019, and we were originally slated to release in March, and I think we started to get production going, and it was prior to Chinese New Year. So in China, they'll essentially kind of shut down for 2 or 3 weeks, usually end of January. So that was all kind of started and not quite finished. And then suddenly the world, and it was changing as we know throughout that whole period. We were starting to hear about things, particularly in China. So it was, are we going to be able to get the stock done and out? And yeah, they delivered it. We got it on a boat just after Chinese New Year because of delays and things with with the whole closing down of supply chains and all that kind of stuff. And it arrived. We got it out kind of in the end of May, early June. So it was touch and go, let's say, I think, for a lot of people. But these people carried on working and carried on delivering, and that was amazing, really.
Yeah, amazing achievement given everything that was going off at that time. Yeah.
I want to also ask about the evolution of the system. It's been 5 years, and most consoles, they are launched. You might have an intermediate, like we've had the PS5 Pro, for example, and that's an intermediate. But for the Evercade, you haven't stood still at all. And this is a notable thing, is that you started with the Evercade handheld, and now it's morphed into many different things. I just want to ask, during that process, how has that been? How did that occur? And also, what have you done to make sure that you've kept the original audience of the original machine happy? Because there's always that risk of, like, here's the Evercade 2, and oh great. So what's going to happen with my carts, and does it work on it, and the backwards all those questions, So I mean, I'm talking about things like the Versus, which I love that machine. It's the fact that you can put two cartridges in at the same time and have a vast library of games. Well, not too vast though, because you can be paralyzed by choice. We've all been there. I own a Mister. I know what that's like. But it's just like having that wall of games is lovely. But just talk us through how, the idea of you coming up with these ideas and go, yes, we'll go with that. Yes, we'll go with a tabletop arcade machine. Yes, we'll go with a console. Yes, we'll go with a little tiny handheld thingy called the Pocket thingy. So, yeah, tell us all about that. How did that come about?
So I think we're a bit different. So generation wise, it's still kind of Evercade 1, right? We're still in that area. So although the form factors of the machines have changed over time to meet different needs and requirements, the cartridge is still the same. So it's still the same cartridge as we had on date. So it's a slightly different. It's not like each time we released a machine, you have to buy a different cartridge for it, or it's not gone from PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4 in that iteration. So it's still kind of the same generation. But actually, the different formats of machine are very much appropriate for different uses. So the first handheld came out. That was a handheld, of course. We said, well, we want to be able to play this on TV in a really comprehensive way, and we want to play multiplayer, so we delivered that. And then the handheld, we felt, what we did between the original handheld and the VS, we upgraded everything, so the Wi-Fi and everything was added. So suddenly the original didn't quite match up to the VS, so we had to really move that on to. That was probably the fastest thing we did, really, is to say, actually, the original handheld kind of doesn't perhaps give you the same experience or as good an experience as you would get with the VS. So we moved that to the EXP. And after that point, it's been, well, actually, I want to play it on an arcade unit, which is where the alphas pop down. So we've got over 10, 12 arcade cartridges now. Oh, it's more than that. It's 20 nearly, I think.
We're about to hit 20.
On the arcade cartridge, the purple one. So that's it's a sort of form factor thing. I want to play on an arcade, which is certainly a popular thing. And then the pockets are really, they're the entry point, I think, for a lot of people now, because it's sort of, your prices go up with more features and all the rest of it. So you then have to think about, well, actually, the original handheld was a lot cheaper. So how do we give someone a jump-in point if they want to try Evercade? And the pockets are really designed as if you want to buy one and you want to play Street Fighter and Final Fight and whatever else on the Capcom machine, and there's a load of games there, and they're all arcade. They're not console games. If you want to play on those and have a nice experience, it's £50. It's not too expensive, and therefore, if you never bought a cartridge, it doesn't really matter. You probably have a good time with it. But if you want to try a cartridge, you can. So they've all formed a little niche and a different reason for being in it, and that's kind of the thought process that goes behind it all the time.
I think also to kind of embellish on that, especially, I know, Chris, you were saying about the EXP. When we looked at the EXP, and I'll go a bit behind the doors inside baseball on this, I guess, we literally sat in a room having watched every single video that we could, listened to every single feedback that we had, been answering the emails from the users for the last couple of years, seeing all the social media posts. And we knew after we'd done the VS that something had to change with the original handheld. We knew we were going to hit some kind of ceiling with what was possible for us to achieve with it, purely because of some of the design decisions at the time and everything else. And we genuinely did sit there and go, what can we do? What do people want? And listen to the feedback. And I believe, at the time we were a slightly smaller team, so it was only a few of us in the room at that time, but we went, okay, what can we bring that's new? Tarte mode came out of that. What can we do to improve the whole thing? How can we make it more, I guess, feel like more of a device that people want to be seen with in a way? And that's not any kind of slight on the original handheld, but the design was very much evocative of a more playful thing. And we knew, seeing the amount of interest we were getting from other people, that if we did go the opposite way and went into that more technological kind of look, we knew that there was an audience there that would go straight in for that, because they want that kind of device and they want that kind of thing. And the one thing that, in fact, it's probably the only thing I say, not that we didn't listen to, but we very much stuck to our guns with, was the screen, because we knew that we needed to make the screen better for people. People had wanted to have a brighter screen, more colourful screen. There's a lot of people that wanted a bigger screen, but the one thing we found sitting there playing everything was, we liked the form factor, we liked the size, and increasing the screen would have irrevocably changed that experience. And even with the Super Pocket, we still got that really cool experience. And you look at modern devices now, everything just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you get more and more and more paranoid about taking it on a train. We didn't want that to occur to our product. We didn't want to have that separation.
There was 4 desks in that office originally, and then we started hiring more people, and then that couple of people working from home, and they used to come in and basically sit on a beanbag in the corner, because that's all we could really fit in the space. And we'd have a whiteboard out, and that's, as I say, that's Tarte mode was a kind of, how can we make this special? We all just sat around for an afternoon talking about it, and eventually we talked about Tarte, and then it was how to deliver it and all the rest of it. Suddenly that became a thing, and we've always tried to do something different or interesting with whatever the new product was. So we sort of, you can't always reinvent the wheel, but I think for things, our unique selling point has always been the cartridges, really, and it's the feeling. And we'll talk about that quite a lot. It's from the get-go, it was always about recreating the cartridge experience for people. So, cracking over the box and going rifling through that manual and all those things which we kind of all miss. And that's been the key driver and the special thing about our products. And I think it's 77 cartridges will be released by the end of the year. 77? Is it?
Let me do some quick maths on that.
If they were not, something. Without really,
yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite recent releases, if I may share, is the Delphine collection. Because I actually started playing Flashback on it, and I still remember buying that game in Bond Street HMV for the Amiga. It's one of those memories, Just I was old enough to actually spend most of I didn't have many priority games because I was a certain older age group, so I had all the feelies, all of them, all the maps and the drawings, and just remember folding all those out and having. I mean, Wing Commander was the champion of that, and we all know that. But just having all that stuff. The Monkey Island as well. Just so much stuff. The Infocom games, all that stuff. But, and that's what I think you draw from, that sense of picking up, drawing from your shelf, opening it up. I mean, I'm gesturing over to my right here. I've got a whole rack of cartridges from various systems, Sega Master System, got N64, got SNES. It's all there. And it's just that feeling of pulling you out and having a look at all the stuff and just really getting it's all part. It's just like, in the virtual green room before, we were talking about Steel Battalion, which is the ultimate feeling. Because it turns a controller.
The ultimate expression of it, yeah.
It is,
I have a friend, and this is his story, not mine. He's because when he knew I was sort of joining this, and we were talking about that whole experience of things, he went from where he lived into Newcastle with his pocket money, got the bus in, and just wanted to buy a game, any game. Didn't know what, didn't care what. He just wanted to go and buy a game because that's what you did back in the day. Now, if you read some of the magazines, you might have had a Target or something like that, but you knew you were going to go in to somewhere like WH Smith's or somewhere else. There'd be a rack of Spectrum games or whatever, and you would pick up what was in whatever your budget had. And he went into a shop and he bought a game called A-Train, which, if anybody is a strategy guy knows, is very much a kind of town city transport planning simulator type game where you build transport routes and it ends up building infrastructure. He didn't really have much interest in it, but one of his key memories is being on the bus, getting that wrapping off of the thing, opening it up and just like leafing through the manuals, trying to discover exactly what he got and what we had to do. And when you open those manuals and you get the smell of fresh print just coming up through your nostrils, especially on probably a hot summer bus going back from Newcastle to Hartlepool and things like that. It's just like, those are the evocative things that stay with you, and it's things that stay with us, and part of the reason why the cartridge is still front and center of everything that we do, because it's that core experience of what keeps people not only coming back to us but coming back to wanting to play games.
I remember doing that with the original Civ Civilization. Buying it for the AGA Amigo, and look, this supports the AGA. One of the few games. Picked it up, opened it up, not realising that my life was about to be changed forever.
I suppose instead of sniffing manuals and cartridges, people went to licking them, didn't they, with the Switch?
With the Switch, yeah.
Yeah, but they were challenged to do that, though.
Yeah.
That was thrown out there as in like by the way, you shouldn't do this. Definitely try it for the clicks. Go and do that.
But there is a lovely touch to the Evercade, which I need to address right now, is the fact that the cartridge or the machine technically could be argued is not complete without a cartridge in it. Now, granted, you do release machines now with built-in games, which I love, by the way. It's just the fact you can turn it on and off you go without one in. But the fact that it's got this form, this curve at the back, that then finishes off the rear of the machine, or indeed the front, or indeed a lovely touch. You didn't have to do that, I get it. But maybe you did. If that was an inspirational thing or something you always wanted to do, was it always something? Or was it something like, what we could do? Do you remember how that came about?
I think it was a kind of conscious thing to make it a complete thing with a cartridge and make it feel special, and it just looks integrated with the cartridge.
It does, yeah.
And that's the thing, and I don't believe many. Can you think of another console that does exactly like that? I don't.
Honestly, I think
Game Gear is probably the closest one to it.
Yeah, the Game Gear's got that.
Yeah, that's true.
Has the cartridge format caused you any issues? Now, obviously, like times and prices change over time, but obviously technology changes really quickly. So something like that storage format that was so plentiful in 2020 and 2019 when you were creating the Evercade, it might not be so plentiful now. As I don't know, was you purposely chosen that format because it wasn't going to be an issue going forward?
Yeah, it's still pretty readily available. The production, I mean, this is kind of detailed, but production moved from Taiwan to China of those particular chips, and we wondered whether that would have an impact, but it's actually been fine, and availability is still there, and we've done 1.2 million or whatever it is now of those carts, and we can order them readily when we need to. So I don't, it's not been a particular challenge right now. Obviously, these things and the world changing and tariffs and all sorts of things going on, it does cause issues, but as it stands, pretty reliable, and we had some luck actually with the type of chip, the various different chipsets that manufacturers. One manufacturer, which we could have chosen at one particular point, they had no stock throughout COVID. They were really down, but the one we selected just through blind luck, they were actually okay for that particular size and spec and everything else. So that worked fine. So yeah, it was a bit of luck and fortunate that we were able to continue through 2021 and 2022 when it was really tough.
It's kind of weird thinking about that, because like one of the things that we do, and we joked about with the showcase, but we are always moving forward. We very rarely look back to reflect on anything outside of learning from what's going on and stuff like you do in any kind of in any kind of action or business or job. But actually going back and thinking about it, we've managed to dodge and survive COVID, Suez crisis.
Stop it! You'll curse us.
Brexit.
Well, I don't know if I can. We've gone through everything. There's not much left.
Somehow got through Brexit as well, which is still rumbling on.
Through stock being stolen.
Yes,
which was a while back. That was a fun one. Well, it wasn't actually. It was terrible. Although actually, in hindsight, you beat yourself up a lot more when it's kind of your fault. So if we make a mistake, then we beat ourselves up a bit more about it. But when something like that happens, you sort of think, well, what were we supposed to have done? It was all just bad, really. And
right.
Has that changed how you deal with like new products at all? Or so has it made you just like almost like micromanage a product, or do you just say, look, what happened was just a really, really a bit of really bad luck? And
I think we've taken a little bit of difference on the way we ship goods, and we have taken some precautions and certain things, but it, generally speaking, it's not been a big thing we could affect or change. As I say, it wasn't. We were doing all the things everyone else does when they ship goods, so it wasn't out of the ordinary. And we quickly manufactured the replacements, a lot of our own cost, and waited for insurance really as we did, and it eventually came through, which was good. Helped us out. But that was a fun one.
It was. Let's go back a little bit about your past again. We spoke about this in the virtual green room, and I think it'd be nice to clarify something, because there was a Blaze before the Evercade, but talk us through, because and I mean, let's talk about this in the third person, because they were a different entity. You share the same name, but it sounds like they were doing emulation software and emulation devices in the early 2000s, along with many others. And in fact, I was just I was going through my inventory of all my retro gigs. I've got a little phrase of mine going, keep it alive in 25. So I'm just trying to keep all my machines alive. So I'm just So
nick that one.
By all means, keep it alive in 25. It's halfway through it now. I've just refurbished my Amiga 1200, for example, just to make sure everything's okay. I recapped 2 or 3 years ago. That wasn't a problem. It's just clean it out, make sure the disc was clean and stuff like that. But anyway, I found these direct-to-TV things that you could plug into the telly. And I was just going through them. There was no battery corrosion or anything, because there were no batteries in them. I was very careful with that. I took all the batteries out. So I plugged some of them in, and they were very ropey. But can you tell us what's the relationship between the original Blaze and what we have now?
So Blaze as a company was essentially closed in, I think, 2014, 2015. Ceased to do business. And I think the assets were transferred to another company, which I was working for at the time, or not at the time, but later. And I joined, and we started talking about the whole Evercade project and sort of separating that and building a company around that. And we said, well, what should we call the company, and all those kind of things. And those assets, the IP, the name, trademarks and stuff, were still there. So we kind of went, well, particularly for retail and things like that across Europe, they'd heard of that brand, and they knew they were able to deliver products. So it made sense. Maybe we could borrow the name and sort of under new management, I guess, and start again. So we don't really have anything. There's nothing being left behind in terms of the products or the IP, apart from the name, really. And we started fresh.
Yeah.
It's one of those things as well. You can build your own future out of it, really. And I know we sort of talked about how Evercade is. I mean, for the most part, Blaze Entertainment is the company, and it has been the company. But for so many people, Evercade has been the company. Evercade's been the name, the brand, and the thing that's really brought people in as well. The fact that Blaze was anywhere near it almost became a secondary afterthought as a name. So it's nice now that we're a growing company and we have a lot of different spokes on the wheel that we can actually take a lot more ownership of the name of Blaze Entertainment and do a lot more with that and really build those bridges that we that know the name and build new bridges from our own work and not just from things that have come before us.
Well, when we first started, I don't know if anyone could find the original stuff in terms of the marketing, and we actually made a conscious effort not to make it about Blaze. It was about Evercade as the new thing, and then we introduced Blaze kind of later because we didn't want any kind of that dodgy TV stuff which he had before. So that was separate, and people have now trusted the brand again, and we've kind of rekindled it in a different way.
Personally, I find it quite comforting when I turn on an Evercade, and that's the first thing that the Blaze logo appears, and it's sort of the load thing, and you've made the logo, the loading bar a part of it. It's just a very, very elegant, and it's just quite appealing to know that when you turn it on, when the first thing you see is that it comes up, it's like, oh, cool, it's working. They are very reliable machines, don't get me wrong, but it's a nice little welcome screen. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Out of interest, who has everyone gone back to the old Evercade boot up, or are you still rocking the new one? I went back to the original.
I love the original one.
I love it, but I've not actually had a chance to go on and change anything yet. I've updated everything that I can, but I've not actually changed any of the stuff that I need to do yet. So I probably will go back to the original just because, I like it as well.
Yeah.
It's nostalgic of a thing that's designed to deliver you nostalgia in a way.
Yeah.
Well,
I have to remind people that Retro Gamer magazine is now 25 years old, and it's now retro in itself. So irony there. This feedback loop. It's like, oh, we're retro, yes, but oh no.
Truly retro.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a thing that's gone through the times. I used to be a journalist, so I know people that were around the offices at the time, and back then, like if we're even talking like 10 to 12 years ago, when magazine print was still there, Retro Gamer wasn't the team it is now, with vast swathes of retro paraphernalia available to hand or anything else like that. It was a desk next to a load of other desks where there were a lot of other things. It was very much a in the bullpen kind of magazine talking about stuff with features and interviews. And now I think everybody's obviously a bit more remote in the way they work, especially from that magazine, and you can see that from the editor and everybody else that puts it there. But there's something about being in the space where retro is that helps make that feel like it's authentic. Not that it never has been, but it really feels like the people that are there are not just into retro. It is a way of life. It is a thing around them, and then they live and breathe this, and they understand it, and they want to pass that passion and knowledge onto you, as opposed to here's a magazine writing some copy telling you some things.
Yeah. So it's just them and Edge, I think PC Gamer might be still going. Can't remember.
Yeah, PC Gamer is the big brand. They've got a lot of they've managed to, because PC gaming is always still going, so they've managed to sort of move quite well with how everything else is adapted in the times of media journalism with gaming and stuff like that. It's been quite a nice little transition for them. But there's still print out there, and there's still new print, coming up all the time. Magazines like Debug, who are celebrating indie games, things like Pixel Addict and Media Addict from Addict Media, and there's always the Spectrum magazines, things like Zap and Crash, and there's still all of these kind of older names that are rejoining or coming back to life as part of a concerted fan effort. And that's a nice thing to see, that because even with Evercade, and one of the successes of Evercade has always been that it's managed to foster a community that's really got behind it. And it's the same for all of these publications. They've got a group of people that want to continue to celebrate the things that they love.
Yeah. There was a brief magazine, wasn't there, for a little while that I think it still might be available on Amazon.
Yeah, the Evercade Evolution magazine that's done by a guy called Vaughan, who's been doing a lot of the Facebook groups and the unofficial Facebook groups, and is somebody we talk to semi regularly as well. He's a nice guy. It's all about the passion with that. I know Martyn has done a lot for that magazine as well, and I'm reliably informed that issue 6 is still happening. I know we're at issue 5 and we've been there for a little while, but issue 6 apparently is still happening. Sorry to break that news, Vaughan, but I'm holding you to it now. You're going to have to do it.
Retro Asylum, we do not speak lies. This is all the truths. So now it's going to happen. We can wish it into existence. But it's wonderful, the community, the amateur sort of journalist community is commentary, of which we are part of, is blossomed around Evercade. And it's such a wonderful thing to write about because you've got all the collection of the numbers on the spine, which is a wonderful idea. I've been thankfully largely immune from it because I went and said, I like that cartridge and what's content of that. Not so keen on that. Not going to buy that one. And that's how I've treated it. Others have just gone, all of them. I want all of them. And that's lovely too.
Well, there's a mad scientist here in this podcast right now who might have been behind that.
Right.
Yes, it's my fault that they're numbered.
Well done, sir.
It made sense. We had 10 cartridges at the beginning, and we just number them 1 to 10, and that was
And then you started renumbering them based on their colour, whether they're blue, purple, or red.
I kind of felt that was a good idea and a helpful thing to do for people, because if you just want to collect arcade, you don't have to invest in all the other stuff and feel like you have to do it. So we kind of compartmentalize them into the different colours. It's also quite a nice way to give people the choice and they'd easily be able to see the different types.
Also, look a bit odd, wouldn't it, with the different colours suddenly? A band of blue, then purple, then
weird.
red, then red, purple, red, blue. So, yes, that would have vexed a lot of people. But,
On that, the carousel that you can see now, in sort of as part of the OS, was that always a goal, or is that something that sort of developed as the cartridges came out, and you thought, it'd be a good idea to sort of have a library showing what is available?
Yeah, we had the library idea a while back, and then originally it was just going to be a library of the carts, and then it kind of became a bit more than that, and we put a huge amount of energy and effort into it in the end, and but I think it's kind of reaped its rewards, and it's a nice place to explore, and again it's still the same physical thing. You can't play the games from there and all those kind of things. It's still just a what do I own and what am I will I perhaps be interested in, and it feeds into that kind of idea that you get to browse and check through and see what you might like and buy what you like. So, obviously we don't mind everyone buying everything. That's great. But obviously, equally, we like seeing people having fun playing the games, not just putting them on the shelf and never touching them. It's so it's quite nice to see them, being selective and saying, I like that. And then equally as well, it's great to see people explore and saying, I've never played that before, and actually it's really cool. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, we've recently been doing that with our Evercade special podcast, where we've been going through the entire contents. We did the number 5 recently with the Atari Collection 2, I think it was. We've found some absolute gems on there. I mean, there was there's the chap, the Human Cannibal, which we thought, hang on, this is the 1970s version of Angry Birds.
There's a there's a line there, I guess. Yeah.
There's actually, like, I mean, as someone who didn't grow up with an Atari 2600, my experience of those games and that era of gaming has been very much third hand. It's been through people talking about it, and even before, really playing a lot of retro games and stuff, some of the bigger names, like you always know Centipede and Asteroids, etc. and stuff like that. But even things like Adventure, unless you were really into gaming, really didn't impart into the consciousness of everybody until Ready Player One made it a thing. So actually getting to go, like, pick up the Evercade collections and having to, like, go, all right, so there's a couple of games that I know. I'm going to play Centipede. I'm going to play the version of Asteroids that we have available, or things like that, which I believe is the 7800 version on that cart. But then you go, what's Dark Chambers like? Desert Falcon is actually quite challenging if you want to make it that way. And then you go and look at games like Haunted House and you read the manual and you go, I understand how to play this now. This is what I do. Yeah. And even some of like the genre-defining games that are on there, like Solaris, which is incredible, and Jar's Revenge, there's you discover through something that you know a lot of other things that you don't know. And one of the things that we normally talk about when we said about the numbering of the stuff is it's like these cartridges are like issues. They're like comic book issues, but also at the same time, they're very much like curated libraries of things you love, things you have no idea about, and things that you're going to love. It's a great little way to sort of experience a palatable nugget of great gaming in a nice way.
Yeah. On the curation side of it, I'm interested to know a little bit more, actually. So, and I'm probably going to simplify this massively. You decide you want to make a Taito cartridge. You call up Taito, email and whatever. Do they give you a list of games that are available to you, and you pick from that, or do you say we'd like game X, Y, Z, and then they come back to you and say you can't have that, but you can have A, B, C instead? I'm obviously simplifying it massively, but I mean, just how does it work?
It's actually a big wheel of fortune. Like we actually visit their offices and they spin it, and if it lands on the game, we get it.
It would be so amazing if I could just pick up the phone and go, "Oh, hi guys, Taito, can I have those?" And
hello, Mr. Taito.
That would be amazing. I mean, these things sometimes can take years, right? They take years to get, but when you kind of get over the getting them to trust you, getting them to understand you what you're asking for, and agreeing all the commercial terms and all that kind of stuff, and the general thing. Yeah, it's sometimes it's literally, this is all the games we've got, and pick and choose what you want. And some of them, sometimes they're like, give us a list of things that you think we might have. You're sort of saying, because they don't even know really, not specifically Taito, they certainly know, but lots of people don't know actually what they own and what they don't own, and they have to go through a legal process, assess it all, and you find out that actually they don't think they own that, and it's a sort of detective thing of hunting down rights. Yeah. But when it comes to getting sometimes they write themselves these lists because they've only got that or have only got this. Other times we sit there and we've got a nice, lovely job of just curating and choosing and picking stuff. But yeah, that it is fun. It's a fun thing to do of working through that. I wish we had complete carte blanche, because I think people think, well, why the hell didn't they all get that? That's stupid. They should have. Yeah. It's actually not. There's reasons. There's things like, well, the music rights are owned by this person, and that person never wants to let anyone have it ever again, and that's just blocked away for history, and you never that's a real challenge for people.
The Rainbow Islands effect.
Yeah. I think there's also as well one of the things that we talk about enough of. We always say, it's not just us being in the right place at the right time. It's about the owner or the publisher or the developer being in the right place at the right time to want to do this. There have been several releases of games, both physically and digitally, and you see all these collections of games that the publisher has coming out and stuff like that. And those are games that they know that they own. And when they're published, it's still their game that they've made themselves. That they're giving it to a third party to do the put it on a cart and get it out there, but it's still their software and everything else. We're really taking their games and implementing it into our software and into our things and into our way of doing stuff. There is a lot of trust that, because it's not just we're publishing the work that they've already done that they're happy with. We're publishing a game and making it work within this unique environment. And it takes a lot of trust and a lot of work between both us and our production and development teams and the license holders and everybody there responsible as well.
Yeah. And then, again, using Taito as an example, I suppose, is that a conscious decision? So they've obviously got like their milestones cartridges that you can buy for like Switch, for example. Is that a conscious decision on your part where you say, let's do something a little bit different to that rather than just bring milestones to Evercade, for example?
Yeah, we always want to bring something interesting or different or fun, which is perhaps not out there as a collection already defined in a different way. And as with Sean was saying about these different sort of like collections, which you have a variety of things. There might be some kind of hits on there. There might be some sort of hidden gems. There might be some weird and wonderful stuff. We try and mix it up. Sometimes though, you just get there and they say, we've had these games cleared by legal, and they're already on these platforms, so we're kind of comfortable. We're not scared of someone coming out the woodwork and saying, "I own, I'm the voice artist on that, and I own this or that." So sometimes that's where you get the limits. You're just told that's it. We do a lot of editing and changing kind of small details and things where they don't want this publisher on there because they're no longer on it, or they're no longer part of it. So we have to do that kind of work additionally as well. But typically, you go in with your strongest suit and try and fight for the best stuff, of course. And sometimes that works, and sometimes you have to relent and say, well, we'll get this.
Yeah, I think there's also a really nice thing with our community that because we've had this ability to pick the odd thing here and there that people don't expect or don't know, people are almost excited every time they get a collection about, oh, okay, what undiscovered game am I going to enjoy now? So Data East Collection 2, we have a Trio the Punch, which is an incredibly Data East Arcade 2, sorry, it's an incredibly mad arcade game that is just bonkers. It's just absolutely bonkers, and there's no other way to describe it than it's like a 90s alt comedy fever dream but Japanese, and it's insane. But it's one of those things that you would never really go through and go, oh, I'm going to play that, or oh, I'm going to look for that, or I'm going to seek that out unless you know about it. And even when we first published Tower Plan 1 and 2, which was late 2002, early 2003, games like Truxton weren't available anywhere. They've become a bit more available now on digital and stuff, but I think at the time there were two devices that had the arcade version of Truxton on it, and they were two mini arcades. And we were the next thing, and we were the first people to physically publish that game in its arcade form in any way, shape, or form. And I was actually saying this to one of our staff members the other day, is that I have both of those devices that game is on, and I put all two of them next to the Evercade, and I tested the lag, I tested the emulation quality, I tested everything else, and I was blown away from the fact of, wow, we have done a very good job here, because there is an experience here that you're having that you're not getting on those devices. And it's not because of power, it's not because of grunt, it's because of care and attention to that. And, since then, I think I wouldn't like to say that we've set a watermark at all, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are publishing a lot of collections now, and the overall quality of emulation across the retro space has got a lot better on these collections, because a lot of people have fed back that needs to improve and change. Going back to the devices you were saying about earlier, when in the early 2000s you have a device like that, who do you scream to say you make this better? Yeah. And when people say, it's difficult to do this, it's difficult to do that, there are people that can go, well, Evercade can do it. Look what they're doing. Yeah. And that's great that we've got that high watermark. Yeah.
Funny that you mentioning the Tower Plan 1 games there. How did the interview? I'd love to. How did the interviews come around for the manual? So you had was it Masahiro Yuji and Tatsuya Uemura?
Yeah, that's correct.
In the manuals, probably butchered the pronunciations there, but how did that come around?
Yeah, no, that was pretty good. I when I did the voiceover for the showcase that did that, I had to do that 4 or 5 times, and a friend of mine's a voiceover artist, and I went, listen to this long audio that I've got and try not to laugh, because it's just, when you're trying to get it there. Masahiro Yuga and Tetsuya Imura is an interesting one, because the story behind it actually sounds a little bit boring, but we did simply ask. One of the things that we're in the privileged position of on these kind of things is because we have the open ability and the contact with these people through the licensing and everything else. We do have the ability to go, hey, we're doing this as part of it. It would be great if we could just, maybe send you some questions, send you some things, and get some answers. And they were all for it. They were all for it. And
they're still in the business, right? They're still Tatsujin. They're still there making games, and visited them in Tokyo, and they're the real deal, still there. And it's great because they're licensing their games that they developed a long time ago, and they introduced me to some of the team that they're still in the office. It's just pretty cool. Actually, it's quite rare, but it's pretty cool. So we licensed those games from the original developers, and they are still there today doing these amazing stuff. And they've recently done. When's the release? Is that's released? No,
the one they announced the other day, the Truxton Extreme. I think it's coming later this year. Yeah, but that looks great. It's like it looks like a remake of Truxton, a kind of that kind of later Toa Plan era, sort of proper early 2000s arcade, great 3D graphics, but still top down view, bright colors, 60 FPS, and all that kind of stuff. But with a remake of Truxton on it. And it looks really, really cool. It was announced, I think it was announced during the Summer Games Fest last week. So, but there's that, IREM are still around as the original IP owners of things like R-Type and that, and they've just announced a remake of R-Type Delta. And
they have,
that all of these guys in some way, shape, or form are around, and sometimes we have the luck of being able to have some kind of direct access to them and make the best of it.
Speaking of arcade developers and still being around, I'm going to segue here. Oh no, I've called it a segue now. It's not long a segue anymore. It's all about custom controllers, because Sony have just announced one for the PS5. It's long overdue, in my humble opinion. Looks very, very, very nice and very expensive. But I love using those, but not on beat 'em ups, but on games like Ikaruga and shoot 'em ups, shmups, basically, because they are wonderful for that. They're just it's just really good. I mean, ever since the Dreamcast, because my Dreamcast got an arcade stick, and that's what I used it for. Not for Soul Calibur, although that is a sublime game. I use it generally for the shooters. Is there any plans for something similar, or is it definitely a case of no? Here's the machine, here's the controllers, off you pop. Nothing more than that. But is there any plans to actually have any? Because I'm just thinking of the alpha and the fact that you can plug in a third-party controller into it. And I know to have 2-player games, but just wondering, kind of leveling the playing field a bit by having a separate little arcade stick for it. But
it's interesting because like you say, playing those Toa Plan games, especially on an alpha, is incredible. It's a lot of fun. And they were designed for sticks, right? They were designed for that kind of thing, so it makes sense. We always go a little bit back and forth on this because we always look to see if there's an option, if there's a market interest and market availability on doing any kind of external controller. I think because we've got a lot of that third-party support, not that we don't need to, but we give people the options that they can do, and we know people will be interested in a new controller, a specialist controller, whether it be wireless or whether it be an arcade stick or whether it be a trackball and a spinner or anything else. And we know these conversations come up very regularly within the community, but we still have to abide by having to make enough of them, having to sell enough of them, having to get the production right and getting all of these things, find the right price point. And we're also at a point, especially with arcade sticks, if we were going to do one, we want to do one really well. And we don't want the price of that to outprice or be too mad to the device that you're actually playing it on, because then you start questioning the value and things like that. So it's one of those things, again, I think it will be very much if we do those things, obviously we'll be very open. We'll tell people about them. I'm sure half of the communities will start going, finally they've done one, because we get asked it a lot. But it will be very much when it's right for us to make that next step into doing those things, and know that people will want them and will be able.
Just as an aside, you said third party does support it. So my favourite arcade stick is the 8-bit Do one, which works on the PC and the Switch 2, of course, now. But does it work with the Alpha? I don't know. I've never tried it. There you go. See, answer the question. It's a wonderful stick. It's a wonderful machine. Sorry.
Yeah, pretty much anything that works on the VS will work on the Alpha. It's a very similar base, and we've tried to keep that uniformity between what you can expect out of our devices across all of our devices. So it does work with that. It can work as a second player one as well. So if you have one person playing on the console and one person on a stick,
that's what I was thinking. Someone sitting there on the lap because I've modified mine because I've got an 8-way gate. The Hyde Dukin, so it's a bit of a cheat, but at least I know where clunk. There you go. I can actually, get it in there. So I've got my own gates in my controller. So I know you encourage that kind of thing. It's just it's a good thing. The mod community is huge in the arcade thing. They love switching out the switches and all that sort of stuff. It's a big thing. It's a whole community.
We just added mouse support for various games on
yes,
yeah.
Jim talked us about that.
Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, we're always, our development team are always looking for those kind of feature upgrades and things that make it more fun or easier to control. So there's a set number of games that applies to. So it doesn't sort of roll across. There's not much use for it on lots of games, but for certain ones, it's really useful. So they've added that in. I don't want to. I'm kind of expecting keyboard support and things like that. Eventually, we'll pop in for certain things, and that just is something we can do on the devices with Wi-Fi. So it's just an update of a new firmware which we add. So we like to keep adding a bit all the time. So although I always think it's quite good. I know there are other devices out there that cost under £100 where they are huge companies where they update your Amazon Fire Stick or something, but we, for the kind of price that we do, not many companies continually update and continue try and offer this stuff. So it's kind of a nice thing for everybody to feel like we're still putting lots of effort, and we will continue to do so. So
do you like my monthly free game? Very nice, thanks for that. Lovely idea.
Can you do that on your own back? So, like adding mouse support to a game that perhaps didn't have mouse support originally, or is that something you then have to go back to the original IP holder and just to let them know? Or
I don't. Well, I mean, technically, we have actually done that already. So, one of the things that we've got coming in future. Just double check that we definitely announced it. Yes, we have. Yeah, one of the things that we've got coming in future is Operation Wolf, which is on Taito Arcade too, and we have for that, and also a couple of the bonus games that are available now, mouse support to use it instead of the cursor. So back in the arcade, this was a light gun game. This was a shooter game. So the mouse support is being used for that. So it is being used for things that it wasn't originally made for and designed for, and those things. So when it comes to sort of the implementation of how people control, we're not really that kind of beholden to it. It's more a technical aspect of what we can make work and what's available. When it comes to certainly the 32-bit PS1 era games, the 16-bit era games, there are certain games that had mouse support from the off with those kind of things, or it was converted, or the PlayStation or whichever was able to use a mouse after the fact or anything else like that. So we're kind of in the confines of what's able to be done originally in that kind of view.
Yeah, so I think like the Broken Sword, that was the PlayStation version, wasn't it? So that would have obviously had the PlayStation.
Well, yeah, and Quake 2. Yeah. Quake 2 on the PlayStation 1, which is a technical marvel, by the way. Ought not have been, but they made it somehow, and it supports mouse and controls. It's wonderful. Really good. Yeah. Okay. The next sort of query, and this is something that we at Retro Asylum internally had a bit of a discussion about, was the concept of introducing some form of multiplayer be it direct or real-time online multiplayer, or perhaps leaderboard system or something like that. What's been the thoughts within the Evercade team about this?
Since the get-go, I think the original premise was, right, we want to recreate the original experience of playing these games. So with the cartridges and the manuals and all that kind of stuff. And also being able to plug them in and just play like it used to be. So I think we've kind of shied away from getting too involved in kind of online multiplayer and things like that, because it wasn't a thing back in the day. And obviously LAN parties and all that came along. But I think for us, it hasn't been as... I think if you'll find a bunch of Evercade fans who perhaps would love to see that, there's kind of a whole bunch that would be like, look, I don't want that in my Evercade life. I've got that on my modern console. I go to Evercade because I want to get away from that to some extent. So I think that's really the feeling at the moment. Not to say, things like leaderboards are more likely to happen, I guess, than like online, where you can post a score. But we don't want to go, I don't think, there's other services basically that deliver that stuff. And I think we want to stay kind of true to our roots. I think that's the feeling, certainly my feeling. And these things evolve over time. And as Sean likes to say never. But I think right now that's the way we're going.
That was 1 hour 15 minutes before you got to that. I think that's the longest record of either of us on a podcast before those words have been uttered.
That's all right. No, I mean, we wanted to dance around it and get to the point, but it's something that we've discussed internally. So
yeah, I mean, we've sort of done different things to try and make the original experience as accurate and available as possible. We added high score saving into the arcade game, so almost like an SRAM battery or something like that, your high scores are going to be there. So I think the idea is you get a game, you set a high score, you get your mates around, you have a couple of beers on a Friday or Saturday night, you get your family round or whatever, and you just go, oi, go on, beat that, go on, give it a go. And then, that you put them in front of the alpha, they'll try and have a go, and you'll give a cheeky elbow or something like that. Because that's what it was for us, right? It was, kids or whatever, either on the front room or on the edge of a bed, playing a multiplayer game and getting told off after about half an hour, being told not to fight and all those kind of things, And that part of retro gaming is part of the experience of retro gaming. It's just remembering the togetherness that it sort of brings of being in a place, So, yeah, it's one of those things that, we don't want to, like Andrew says, we don't want to detract too much from the original feeling. We don't want to detract too much from that. And, I think a lot of people would like some concessions in different things of that, as Andrew says, but, it's we kind of like it.
Yeah, I think if we said to everyone, right, no save states for any games now on Evercade, I think there'll be I think we're all pretty comfortable with save states becoming a thing that, you kind of expect. And
yeah, some games, we just said earlier about not wanting to spend hours and hours. There's some parts of Flashback, for example, like, I do not want to do that again.
And also, and no offense, but your reaction speed is probably not what it was and all the rest of it used to be. So we just need a bit of help.
Yeah, I had this conversation where I've just thought, like, with my thumb, I call it the delayed reaction. Like, could you press the button now? What button? The button you're resting on. This one? Yeah, that one. Could you do it now? Well, now? Okay. In your own time.
Falling down the cliff at that point. Yeah.
But that's basically what my brain... That's now the conversation between my brain and my hands. It's like, do you press the button? What button? The one that's just been resting on for the past 10 minutes. Oh, this one.
Yeah, you do have to toe the line, like with a lot of these things of the concession between what we kind of expect and what we like as a modern attribute into gaming, and how you can do, and also the authenticity of what it was and how you can do. And you make those concessions to the quality of life. I think is the way that we look at it, more than making it to try and build a feature. It's much more about how do we make this fun for the now, and how do we make this a better experience.
we can't go back. And I used to sit on the floor with my legs crossed in front of that far away. And I think if I try and do that now, my back goes.
Yeah.
I can't quite cross my legs anymore properly. I just I'm too old
Chiropractor on
for
speed
that.
dial.
You'd be in the A&E in less than 20 minutes. Like,
exactly.
What's happened? Well, I lost all feeling my legs. Back's gone. I'm starting to lose the will to live. Please make this stop. So yeah, we're not 8 anymore.
Not children. No.
But
sadly.
what's lovely is, and there's something that's our certain Generation X and beyond, has just said, no, we're not going to let go of these things. Our previous generation did, but why? They're fun. They're entertaining. We're not going to let go. And we haven't. And that's great.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has, that memory, that moment, or, everything that sort of makes something that brings that, neuron firing from the memory to the happiness node of the brain and all that kind of things. And, retro gaming is just one of those things that does it. It's not just, the cool shiny pixel art and the lovely colors and the simplicity and just being able to just sort of absorb and like get everything in. And it's also something about that just fires that neuron and makes you go, I remember when I was 8 in a caravan park and I was playing this arcade game that was in a corner while my folks were playing bingo, ordering pints of mild, sending me to the bar to order pints of mild and saying I couldn't do it, but I came back with a packet of smoky bacon crisps when those were still a thing. It's those kind of things, that it's transformative and transportative. It really does get you in there. And retro gaming, of course, anything, it can be like that. But I like to think, because the Evercade experience is so physical, it makes it more tangible and it makes it more real in the moment. And, you can't replace that.
Yeah.
They've... Sorry, they
No, go for it.
There's the science of nostalgia and things, which I think it has been proven to be a positive effect, and it takes you back to that time when you were happy and you were sort of successful in what you were doing, and it that's a great thing for people. I think it was really great. And you talk about COVID at the beginning of the conversation. We all kind of went in the loft or whatever and got out our stuff, if you hadn't already, during COVID. And there were so many people re-experiencing all this stuff because it's just fun, and it was a positive experience. It was life affirming, and we think that's a great thing, really, for to be able to bring people, and that's part of what we do, I suppose.
Yeah, I was just going to ask actually on that, like the physical media thing. Obviously, games pretty much no longer a thing anymore. So I know previously, like Evercade was the cartridges you could go into a game and buy them off the shelf. Is that something? Obviously, like I say, games no longer a thing, but is that something that you probably look to in the future? Maybe getting alphas on a shelf in maybe not CEX because they don't buy like brand new, but like maybe a supermarket or is that really it's not a viable thing?
Best thing I can think of is Smiths, really, but maybe Argos as well. But
yeah, Smiths, I suppose, or even like when you have like one of these retro shows where you could have like a stall there, or
there's certainly we have a mix of retail. I mean, obviously a lot of it's online these days for everything, this type of product, but in Spain, for example, Game is really still very successful, and so they stock a lot of our stuff, some of which is exclusive, and our Spanish audience pop into a game store and there's stuff for them to buy, and that's the case in different markets, different countries. In the US, there's things like people don't have credit cards, so they have to buy things in cash, and they want to buy things from stores, and all those kind of things. So there's certainly an audience out there who are shopping. There's still stores in different countries. For the UK, it seems to just have gone that way a little bit more. With we've centralised quicker, and COVID really accelerated that.
Yeah.
But I just think that lots of these modern game development companies or platforms are missing a trick. I just think that they've just let go of this way too early, really, for what people want, and they want to own things and hold things and touch things still. I think that's still a massive thing. So we'd like to see more of our product at retail, of course. You have to have the right product.
Yeah.
We perhaps would have some hardware at retail, but software would sell online because we don't expect a store to have 70 odd cartridges in display. We're not, sadly, we're not in those days anymore. But yeah, that's certainly an aim to be improve where you can buy a product and grow, and we've been working on that really hard over the last kind of 12 months to do more of.
Yeah, because something like a Super Pocket, I mean, that is impulse price, isn't it? If you're walking around Tesco's or wherever and you see that on the shelf, that is impulse price.
For some, for
some
many people, for not for everyone, but £50 is kind of, lots of people have make £50 purchases, and it's a takeaway now these days for a family on a Friday night. So it's not what it used to be, and but yeah, we think with the right product, the right brands, and all those kind of things, you can get those positions in store, and that is part of our kind of long-term plan to get those things all put together and get those stars to align.
Speaking of long-term plans, I love my segues. Damn it, did it again.
the radio etiquette is strong. I love it.
I just want to ask, what is for the future? Because you've just, as the type of recording, received an email on your mailing list. Of course I am, regarding the Tato Alpha cabinet, which I'm very, very tempted by, especially the introduction price of a low price of £200.
I'm just still holding off.
I have space for it as well, which makes me even more angry. Anyway, so I might be annoying my bank manager again. But that as well. Anything else you can tell us about or hint at for the immediate future? Because we're right halfway through 2025 right now. So what can we expect from the next 6 months? What you can tell us about having the lawyers hammering on the door saying, what are you saying?
What can we say? So we've already said that there's another 3 carts still to come. So we've announced 12 carts this year. We're going to have 15. What do we want to say, Andrew? Really, we could say a number of things about what's coming. Really.
Well, we'll cut this.
Are we allowed to say?
Get this.
Okay. Let me put it this way: there are the carts that are coming.
Yeah.
All of them are new collections.
Right.
I can say that much. So they're
don't
not
come from an existing partner.
Yeah. So it's not a collection 2 or collection 3 of anything else that's come before. So they're all new collections. They're all very unique, especially to the times that they are. And I believe I can say that of those collections, there will be collection 2s and 3s of them potentially in future as well.
There you go. So they're more dipping into the well or whatever they are.
A scoop.
Yes.
I don't want to give too much away, because genuinely, I know we like to tease, and that's been long directed at me for being the evil mastermind behind that, and sitting there like an emperor on his throne going, I have the information and you do not. But actually, we're genuinely excited about these new collections that are coming up at the end of the year, because they're things that we're really, really passionate about. And I think all of our existing community can be passionate about it. I think a lot of people who maybe have been on the fence about Evercade are going to turn around and go, oh, that's really, really nice. So I think these things are great, and I don't want to spoil the surprise for everyone by putting them out or anything else like that. So I think what I've said is probably enough. But from that, genuinely, they are ones to look forward to.
Here it is confirmed: the Auric Atmos collection heading your way.
How did you know? Where's the leak?
Just a space Harrier. No, just over and over again. Harrier attack. That's right. It's Harrier attack. Just over and over. Variations of. So I was trying to rack my brain about the relatively obscure 8-bit machine, and the Oriapos kept on yelling at me, going, "Go with that, Chris. That's a joke. That'll be fine. I won't offend anyone."
It works. It landed. There's someone angry right now for you insulting that.
There is. I insulted the Oriapos. But no, thank you for what you do. It is. It's a remarkable thing. I just love delving into these collections and discovering games that I wouldn't normally have given a second or even third attention to, because they're there. You just go through, right, I'm just going to plow through this, not plow through it, enjoy it and see what I find. And there's, like I said, we go back to that Atari game and, the Haunted House one. I just absolutely adored that. I just really got into it a lot. Because it's just, like you said, you had to read the instructions to understand what was going on. And the ironic part is that now, because I have something called VR night with some friends on Tuesday nights, we play VR games together. And we're playing at the moment, let's see, it's Phasmophobia? Yeah, Phasmophobia.
Yeah, Phasmophobia, yeah.
Yeah, we're playing that on VR, which is, by the way, terrifying. But it's a co-op game, 4 of us going into the house, trying to hunt ghosts and then failing abysmally. But it's a direct, you can trace the lineage from that to Haunted House, all those 40, 50 years.
Yeah, you really can. There's like connective tissue between so many of these games that you sort of see there and you see now. There are games out there that you wouldn't even think of are connected tissue to other things. No. When you look at what we were talking about in television before we came on, we were saying about Cloudy Mountain. It's like, look at what that game and what that managed to produce at that time has born out of everything else.
Fog of War, directional sound,
procedurally generated new level every time. And we look at it now, like we just announced Roadcraft, which is a procedurally generated roguelike, and it's a great, beautiful visual spectacle of an Amiga game that's been made for us, and with new added bits and things like that as well. It's a Game of the Year award winner with Debug, and you look at that game and you go, but that's also Cloudy Mountain. And you look at all of these things that go through, it's like, these are all of these bits, all of these gameplay loops, these flows, these little bits that people cherry pick and take and embellish and make better, and you can put every single coat of wonderful, beautiful pixel art paint on everything, but if the fun isn't there, then it becomes very apparent. But when the games get it right, that transcends where it is and carries on throughout time. And it's not just those games or anything else, like you say. It's we thanked a load of people in our showcase, and we do genuinely mean it. Everybody from IP owners like Pico Interactive, who have managed to keep a lot of these games alive that would have been lost in perpetuity otherwise. Independent developers like Low Tech Games, studios like Megacat Games, the Retro Room, all of these people that have had a dedication to keeping those platforms alive by making new games for them as well is fantastic. And we've been honoured to be able to give these games a physical home. So it's not just your Ataris and your Taitos and everything else. There were all of these as well, and we've been able to present the whole gamut of retro gaming in a lovely way for them.
Nice. Are either of you still playing sort of modern games? Are you playing anything at the moment, or is it a case of you've been at work testing and dabbling all day, you just kind of don't want to look at a game when you get home?
I'm going to say I do still play quite a lot of games, because I think there's enough of a difference between the modern games and what we do that I can kind of separate it. Saying that, though, I have ploughed a lot of time lately into the old Lego Star Wars Complete Saga, which in itself, disgustingly, is a retro game now.
It is, yeah. I think they gave it away on Twitch recently. They do that a lot. Twitch, they just log on like, oh, there's another free game. There's another one. People don't know this about Twitch, but they just give away games all the time.
Yeah, but I do have to say I have also joined the new generation, and I have been playing Mario Kart World in the very small wee hours that I have, where I sit on the sofa after dinner while my wife is watching something on YouTube. I will try and do a chaotic online race or something.
Yeah. Or knockout.
And ironically, for where we started on this conversation with Andrew, Civilization 7. So, yeah, you know, he's still playing them.
It's very challenging, though, Sean, these days.
What about you, Andrew? What are you distracting yourself with these days?
I have the same thing where I'll sit on the sofa with my device, and then there'll be a box set or something else on, and I'm on both things really. I modern stuff I do a little bit. Both my kids are kind of locked into all that, and you know, sit there with their friends, and it's a social thing, which is cool because that's a nice thing, which hasn't been eliminated. But I just don't have the time and energy to invest in modern very much, and I kind of lost me a little bit as it got closer to movies within games. To be honest, like I'd rather watch the film. If I can't be actually interacting and playing with the game constantly, I don't want to watch a 30-minute long cutscene. That's an exaggeration, but that's my feeling with modern.
Well, this is a Kojima game, then you're probably bang on.
Well, I mean, those are movies.
Yes, yeah.
I saw an interview with him the other day where he said, "I really do want to direct a movie, but I don't think I'm ready yet." And it's like, dude, you're 60-something.
Yeah.
You're 60-something. You know, you might want to get a move on with that.
And he's pretty much made a career of doing it already.
Yeah. No, really. There was another interview I saw with Mad Mikkelsen where he was talking about Death Stranding, and he was like, I have no idea what I was doing, but he was very passionate about it, so I liked it. Although I will say, behind the curtain, like we say we don't play anything modern. Within recent memory, earlier this year, me and Andrew were both on a flight. We both had our iPhones on, or gaming devices, should I say, but also our telecommunications devices. He was showing me how many years he'd been managing Tottenham in Football Manager, and I was showing him how annoyed I was that I hadn't completed a full run of Balatro yet. So it's still there.
That game's evil in a good way.
It is. I'm still.
When you tell people there, you go, "This sounds like a terrible idea." Yeah, you said that about Slay the Spire. This is true. But you know, I think my personal recommendation, if you are short of time or like attention span, all that, just the indies scene is phenomenal for that, and you can actually get away from. They still captured that 3-4 hour attention, and you know, again, my favourite game. I'm going to mention it again. Mini Shoot Adventures. Highly recommend it. Do seek it out. It's a wonderful, wonderful gem, and it just when it pops out the screen, you immediately start playing it and go, "This is a work of absolute genius." So that my recommendation to you would be to delve into that space. I mean, as a recent platformer, Bionic Bay. That's a game. That's an extraordinary platformer. Beautiful, wonderfully, the lighting to it. It's on everything, by the way, not just PC. But I play a lot of my games on this deck and the PC because that's where the most interesting stuff is. Sorry, console people, but there's some amazing stuff back down. You know what it's like when you're looking, and Atwill's Awakening, that started life on a computer and PC game, but eventually made itself on the NES. By the way, a wonderful game. I've interviewed the developers for myself on my previous podcast, The Sausage Factory, and they're lovely people. And when I saw those on the Evercade cars, I thought, good shout. They're good people. They really know that stuff.
The guys from Elden Pixels and December Born were really, really great, and they were really, really awesome when we were working with them on those games and getting everything sorted for them. So that was really awesome. I will say though, that kind of loop, that gameplay loop, we do have a few games that are very much like that. I know I've already mentioned Brocraft DX. That's going to be one of them. One of the reasons it's so good for that Xeno Crisis. It's a really hard game sometimes, but that game really does reward, just getting into it for about 15 minutes and having a great time.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, that's a weird one. It blew up. It's on everything now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Drive, Neo Geo.
There's that Fleet as well.
Stuff.
Fleet,
Fleet from Lowtech. That's managed to get everywhere as well, and that's because the gameplay loop's great. Donut Dodo, Murtop. Those are these great indie games that have that kind of loop, and games like Sword of Fargal, and we said about Roguecraft, but Rogue 64, which is available on every Evercade system now if you know how to unlock it. Great little, I can play that for 15 minutes, have a good time, and complete a run or fail a run. You can do it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to always be Hades, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Or indeed its sequel, which I haven't touched because it's not finished. Till it's done, then I'll be interested. Anyway, Jim, do you want to wrap us up on this one? Because we've been keeping these lovely gentlemen.
We've been going long.
Yeah,
gents.
I've had to turn on a light because I don't get the sun in this angle. So sorry, anybody that has a video version of it. I might be darkness of some of this.
Well, before we go, the floor's yours. If there's anything you want to plug, shout out, go for it. The floor is yours.
I think, there's loads going on. Obviously, we've got loads going on into the rest of the year. Massive thank you, really, to everyone who continues to support us and buy our stuff and enjoy Evercade and get involved in the community and talk to us about what they want and what they'd like to see. And just a massive thank you, really. I think that's really important because the reason we're successful is because the community behind all this is so powerful and interested and they really we love this stuff and enjoy exploring and all the things we talked about. So that's all I want to say, really. Massive thank you.
Awesome. I'll thank you both again for giving up your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you both on, and thank you for the awesome products that you're putting out. And long may it continue. Here's to the next 5 years.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
From now on, unlike your parents were, you are the secret force of retro society.
Playing so fast, they're the only ones who can take you back in time. They play old games, they're more retro than J1 Optimus Prime. At home or the arcade for adventures.